welcome to Attacking Third, your favorite women's soccer show. I'm Sandra Herrera, joined alongside Jordan Angeli and Satara Murray. We've got a packed show for you today. You're probably joining us following all of the action following UEFA Women's Champions League, and we're going to keep that coverage going because what a week, what a couple of weeks. We had round one, round two. We're going to talk all about that. We're going to chat about our reactions to the United States Women's National Team October friendlies, the roster drop. We're going to talk a little bit of previewing for NWSL Week 25. And there's been a lot of retirements. And unfortunately, we got to talk a little bit about that too. But we don't want to start the show on a bummer by any means. But I'm thrilled to be here. Happy to always be here with you, Satara. I love when you join us. It's not enough in my
opinion. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and this is the first time I'm working with Satara. The last time I was talking about her calling a game in NWSL. So it's so nice to work with you, Satara. You've done a good job transitioning to this new world, right?
Yes. It's different. It's new. It's a challenge, but
we love challenges.
I'm enjoying it. I really am. And it's cool. Like life comes at you full circle. So I'm really happy to be here for sure.
Right on. I mean, we've got a chunky show here. Like we got plenty of meat on the bone to get into, and we're gonna hop into it right now. But of course, we want to just thank everybody joining us here on Attacking Third, whether you're watching us live on YouTube or watching on Golazo Network or just listening to us as a podcast. We're just happy that you're here. Let's get into it. Match day 2, Women's Champions League. We had a lot of games. The table is looking more complex than ever. I thought it was going to get a little clearer after match week 1, but no, that's not the case after match day 2. We've got some Americans stepping up and showing out in Champions League, and you like it and we love it. So let's chat a little bit about that right now. Let's show some love to this Manchester United game, because now I think this one was one that was maybe kind of fun for if you're a neutral kind of watching this game. You end up getting a couple of red cards. There's some 2 teams that ended up going out to 10 players. And, of course, you have Fallon Tullis-Joyce holding it down in the goalkeeper's net here. Absolutely emerging as just like this very important player for the squad. They hang on for the 3 points because it got a little testy there. Atlético Madrid kind of bringing it on full force in the second half after getting that player advantage, but a force field, an actual octopus on a goal, right? A Kraken in Fallon Tullis-Joyce, keeping those out of the net, walking away with 6 saves. Takeaways for this one from you, Satara.
Yeah, I think it's first and foremost, like, obviously I love seeing English teams in the Champions League. I mean, especially seeing United, stepping into it and doing really well. Obviously, we speak about Fallon and we see how good she is. I mean, obviously, she's a freak in goal. You know what I mean? And I think it's enjoyable watching her go out there. And but let's talk about that red card real quick. Now, I don't, for obviously people who are watching. Now, I don't know if people would agree with me or not. As a former center half myself, I look at that and I have to go back and actually rewind and watch that foul again. And I thought, I don't see the red card. I don't see the straight red card. I see the yellow. Yeah, perhaps. But I had to rewind it. I slowed it down. I'm thinking, okay, yeah, she clipped her a bit. I'm trying to figure out how Gio also got injured in the process and obviously got stretchered off. And it was a lot, but I don't think, Dominic Janssen deserved the red. I might be a bit biased because I am a former center half myself, but when you're a defender and you're in those situations, obviously you have to be smart about decisions that you make. Mm-hmm. It was a foul nonetheless, obviously. I'm not taking that away. But for a red card, especially in the first half, you're about 40 minutes in, I think it's a bit peak. But, obviously you can't reverse the decision. It was made. But considering that they were a man down for, what was it, about 55 plus minutes. Yeah. I think United, held their ground as good as they possibly could. I think Leah Galton, when she came in, though she is a striker defensively, I thought she was fantastic. Obviously doing her bit as well. So overall, I think, but Atlético Madrid as well, I think they came, they came and obviously gave United a fight. But that red card, I something that I question, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. Now I got to look up peak too, Sandra, because I'm not in with the scope. I liked it, Satara.
Sorry, I was there for too long.
No. It was good. I got to look that up, but I agree. And the thing that is difficult about that situation is Janssen has never had a red card before. So she's not going into tackles recklessly. Like that is not in her character.
Right.
And so that's why it made me question it. It went straight to VAR. You got to honor what happens on the field.
Right.
But the thing to me that sticks out is immediately afterward, how United reacts, right? Mm-hmm. There is a scramble in the box and they are putting their bodies on the line. Right. Fallon's putting her body on the line. They make that save. And Sandra, to me, that was a clear planting a flag and saying, all right, we might be down a player, but we are going to make sure that we put on a show here. And this game, they win 1-0. Atleti was one of the teams of that first round, I think, that a lot of people were looking at and saying, ooh, watch out. Right. And to keep them off the score sheet, I think is just as big of a statement as anything we've seen in these couple of match days.
For sure.
Sorry, you said you rewatched that moment over and over. So like thinking of like the situational awareness of it all, like, is there something that you do as a center back? Like, do you approach that moment differently? Like, is there something avoidable there in your opinion?
I mean, yes and no. I know that's a complicated answer, but I think obviously the situation she was in, how far outside, how close outside of the box she was, how close to goal. I think, it was just, to me, I just think it was a bit of, feet getting a bit tangled up. And sometimes as defenders, you could become a bit clumsy in that regard. But and kind of like what Jordan said, with Dominique never having a red card, you're right. She doesn't go into tackles recklessly like some, I say like myself, because I used to back in the day. But I just think in those situations, I don't know. It's either what you let her run on goal and then that's it, or you try to make a defensive play. And I think that's what she was doing, and it just happened to be a bit clumsy along the way. So it was unfortunate, obviously, but kudos to United for sticking it out and and getting that win.
I mean, it's a big one. It keeps them, after 2 rounds, kind of with those big wigs, right? Like coming into this competition, there was that concept of a big four as far as like who are the title contenders alongside Arsenal. Like you give Arsenal that honor as the current title holders, but everyone's talking about FC Barcelona, especially after their 2 match days as well. Chelsea was in the conversation because of their moves and their more recent history in Champions League, as was Lyonnes, and they are the French Giants. They are 8-time winners. So these are like the big 4 kind of coming in, and then there's a ton of like kind of middling teams. Like who are going to be those teams that end up fleshing things out across this table to make an impact, to maybe make a run or cause some upsets along the way. And here comes Manchester United. Hey, don't forget about us.
I mean, it's not to cut you off, but it doesn't surprise me with United, because if you watch them in the Super League week in and week out, they're doing fantastic stuff. They drew with Chelsea. Nobody really gets that close with Chelsea. So seeing United having the success that they already are having, 6 points in the Champions League, it doesn't surprise me. I think people might be sleeping on them, but I think they're putting people on notice now for sure.
Mark Skinner, great coach. They've got Fallon in goal. You bring in a player like Rolfo, you're going to have a chance in pretty much every game that you have. And she showed it with the class on that finish that she had.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you don't want to ever just like limit a performance like that, but like having a capable attacker, an experienced, offensive production from someone like Ferdinand Rolfo, and then you've got just like a really good goalkeeper in back, like you've got a pretty good shot to like get some results along the way. But I'm absolutely here for it. I mean, as we kind of begin like take these first steps into coverage for Women's Champions League and for like American audiences stateside, they're going to have their eyes locked in on any sort of American players who are playing abroad. And it's nice to take a look at across these rosters and see so many. But for me, I'm always going to want to show love to the defensive side of things. And while I love that Lily Johannes is scoring bangers from the halfway line, or Alyssa Thompson, who we'll get into with Chelsea in a bit here. I'm absolutely here for Fallon Tullis-Joyce kind of making some noise in as far as the goalkeeper competition. I mean, this is a player who's going to be riding 5 clean sheets, Champions League clean sheets, if you go back to qualifying into this international window with the U.S. women's national team, and getting heaps of praise really from Emma Hayes as well. She said in her press call just kind of how Tullis-Joyce has kind of evolved over her experiences at that position, and it's kind of leading the pack a little bit as far as that goalkeeper core. And I think you look at games like this and you can see why. So I think we're watching the story of the next starting U.S. women's national team goalkeeper being told like in real time, and it's been fun to see.
Yeah. Sandra's stamping it.
Yeah.
She says,
let's go. Speaking of potential future starters in the national team, Alyssa Thompson making some noise. Chelsea FC also making some noise. We need these were one of those bounce back teams, right? There were a number of teams that we wanted to see kind of give a response, because match day 1 brought a lot of chaos. It said, hey, this new format for Women's Champions League is going to be good. Don't worry.
It is awesome.
Yeah.
And so here we were already in round 2, like, oh goodness, we need to see some responses. And of all teams, like Chelsea FC was this team that we wanted to see this bounce back. Jordan, your takeaways from this performance and then today?
I think people are going to be shocked maybe of how quickly Alyssa Thompson just integrates into this Chelsea team. But if you watch NWSL, you're not shocked, right? I remember earlier this year, I did a full breakdown on Alyssa Thompson and why she is so good. Because if you give her her left foot, she says, all right, cool. You don't want me to go right? I'm going to go left, and I'm going to cross the ball and get a assist. Okay, you're going to take away the left because I killed you on the cross. Well, now I'm going to shoot with my right foot. She is elite in not just the channel. She can play in the pocket. And I think this was a really good example of this game of how dynamic she is. She's not one-dimensional, and she is an absolute handful. I think the assist was maybe the funniest assist that we saw this weekend, because I don't think your teammate even knew it was happening, and like Alyssa was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Like, she shot across it to her head. But there are so many really interesting things about what Alyssa Thompson can do. And I think that's why it's easy for Bon Pastor to say, hey, go be a 1v1 artist, because it doesn't matter. Whatever way you give her, she's going to take advantage and find a way to be productive. And it was all joy, right, when she scored that first Champions League goal.
Oh, 100%.
Jordan, one thing that you said about the one-dimensional, I love that comment, because when obviously it was announced that she was going to Chelsea, I thought, this is a great thing for her. This is someone that wants to add layers to her game, for sure. She's already dynamic in more ways than one, but adding layers to her game, and she's so fluid in what she does, and it's great. And you're speaking about, like whether people would question or not if she would transition easily coming into Chelsea. Now, the thing is, based off of like my own experience, transitioning from one league to another, as you may know, is quite difficult. Whether you're coming from the NWSL into the Super League or vice versa, it's always a challenge regardless, right? But for her, you don't see a blip. It's like she went there and just like molded beautifully into what they're already doing there. And I think when we see Alyssa finally, like in her, because she's still a child, like when you see her like in her mid-20s, she's going to be out of this world. It's because she's already playing with and against some of the best players in the world that will add layers and elements to her game, which is amazing.
Satara, I think some of that too is just being like young and green and willing to make mistakes.
Exactly.
Because you kind of tighten up as you get older and you kind of get put in like pigeonholed and this is what you are.
Right.
Right now, she's just like free, like, okay, well, I'm just going to go try this.
Right.
And there's a freedom in the way that she plays that is engaging. I think when she gets on the ball, you are not taking your eyes off the TV,
exactly,
which is so fun to watch.
Right. She's phenomenal. She's a phenomenal player. I cannot wait to see her as she continues to keep progressing and getting older. Ballon d'Or, here she comes. I'm just saying.
Ooh, we got some stakes happening here.
For that one. I'm saying.
Come on. That's what I'm talking about. Be bold. That's what we want to do here on A3.
Absolutely.
Look, and I'm with you. Alyssa Thompson, not looking phased. What pressure? Like, you're playing in one of the best leagues in the world, one of the most elite competitions out there. and it's getting back-to-back starts like it's nothing. Like, and she just got there. Like, there's often that talk about that gap or that grace, that window of time that is given to players as they come into teams and watch them integrate. And she's out here saying, like, let's go. Right. Like, no time to waste. Like, I'm here. I came here for a reason, and I want to produce. So it's and she's out there like just having fun, which is also like a huge important component of it. Like, you don't want to leave from ultimately what maybe was really like a comfort zone, right? Like playing at home, playing in your hometown with your sister, like, and on a team where you really were the face, you were like the star, they're MVP type of player. And to leave kind of those comforts and to go somewhere else, like that can add a layer of expectation or pressure. And then you add those things like a transfer fee figure. And you never want that to get into your mentals, right? But we're not seeing that so much from Alyssa Thompson. It's, we wanted to see that bounce back, and it absolutely happened for Chelsea, and it 100% Alyssa Thompson was the catalyst for that, for sure. Maybe another English team that is still kind of trying to find their way. They get a win. This is another bounce back for them. Arsenal ends up getting that 2-0 win against Benfica, but in true Arsenal fashion, it's like kind of not this sort of dominating performance. Satara, you said you're keeping an eye on the English teams here in this one. What are you making of Arsenal after these 2 rounds?
You know what? Weirdly enough, I love Arsenal. Like, every time I watch them play, I'm like, I'm not worried. I know people have had their opinions about them. Obviously, the loss to Lyonnes wasn't ideal, but seeing them in the past, I think it's about them kind of finding their identity. And as soon as they find it, you'll see a different side of Arsenal. I think it's still quite early on. I'm not entirely two-phased about what's going on so far, because you see the talent of players that they already have, and that anything is capable. They're capable of anything. Anything is possible. So I'm glad that they got the win. I'm like low key, I am rooting for them. There's just something about them as a squad that I find myself very drawn to. I don't know if it's because they did what people consider the impossible, beating Barca, back in the final in May. But to me, I think there's something about that team and their identity that, yes, they may have had a loss so far, but I think they have the talent to do that. And with Olivia Smith now, with that addition, I think anything is possible. So, yeah, I'm not entirely too worried about them.
Smith's been good, but a little inconsistent, right? It gives you youth in moments, which is promising for the future. But this is the thing that I struggle with Arsenal right now, is kind of lackluster in attack. In last year at the end, they won Champions League, and it was a little bit lackluster in attack, right? It was all about the defensive performance and not much about what they were doing in the attack. 0 chances on frame, you guys. They did not have a shot on goal in the first half. The first shot on goal is the scrappy goal from Beth Mead, which, like, this is what you need in those moments when things aren't going your way. Well, we're going to figure out a way to make it go. Like, this is a leader for them. So I liked that, but I think credit goes to a lot of these other teams. We're talking about these bigger giants, but one of the things that I've been noticing in this first couple of days of Champions League is the margins are getting smaller.
They are.
And a lot of it has to do with the defensive principles of the opponent. And Benfica put up a heck of a game and really lost it on 2 mistakes.
Yeah.
Really. They lost it on 2 mistakes. And that is a challenging place to be, but also should be a wake-up call for Renee Schlegers and this Arsenal team, because they, with the talent they have, you mentioned Smith, that you've got Caldente and you've got Russo up top. You should be scoring a lot of goals.
Buckets. You're right.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They got Chloe Kelly. Like, is this
Chloe Kelly?
Should this tournament be the Chloe Kelly tournament? Like, you have to manage those minutes for your players. You're going to have to figure out how to integrate those rotations when necessary. You have a big time player who's used to producing in big time moments. Is this where you bring her in? Is that regular? Like, okay, your focus is I need you for Champions.
Yeah,
every game is another.
Yeah. Maybe potentially. I don't know. She would definitely add a directness to what they were doing in the Champions League, which would be, for me, welcome for this Arsenal team. I just feel like like lackluster is the word that keeps coming up when it's just predictable. They get to the final third and like the cross comes in and this run is going here. When it's like you get to the final third, could you chop it back and find a different pass? Like just do something that is
not unpredictable.
Just different. Right, and Chloe Kelly does do that, right?
Yeah.
She has this inventive way about her. So potentially that's a good shout, Sandra, that this could be something where she's a little bit of their Champions League go-to.
Sometimes you have like the champagne problems of like our bench is so deep and like there's not enough minutes to go around, right? There's been some endless conversation around Jenna Neiswanger, for example, a player not getting those minutes. And sometimes there's the opposite of that, the champagne problem. Sometimes the opposite is that like, oh no, you've got injuries and now your hand is kind of being forced as a coach to do that. Unfortunately, we also saw out of this game, Emily Fox coming out of this Arsenal game. She did not look happy, off of that injury. It was not a great sight. There is no update, unfortunately, at this time. But this is one of those players that is, even though she operates and maneuvers on that back line, she's become this kind of integral piece, and as far as like this bombing forward fullback and how they're going to look without this player moving forward. And if you're already this team where the conversation around your performance is that it's lackluster, that's not a great piece to feel like you're going to lose for a significant amount of time. So we'll see if Arsenal makes those adjustments.
Yeah.
I just think this performance, even though they won 2-0, like I credit them for finding a way, but this performance worried me more than the last performance against Lyon.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair. As far as another bounce back team, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Jordan. We were looking for Bayern because coming out of match day 1, it was an abysmal showing for the German Giants. It was like, who is this team? What is happening here? Like, did you forget that this game was going on? Just absolute zombie show. Too much spooky season for me. But the opportunity was that there's going to be a second round. They're going to go up against another sort of heavyweight in Champions League, a huge representative of Serie A in Juventus. So how are they going to respond? They ended up getting a win out of this one. But maybe any similar threats here for what you're seeing from Bayern and maybe to Arsenal?
I felt like Bayern created a lot of opportunities in this game. They get the goal. I mean, do we call it a goal? I'm not quite sure. I didn't think it was a goal, but I guess they did think it was a goal. So whatever. They get the win in this one. I did feel like they created a lot more chances against a Juventus team who I was super impressed with them. That 4-5-1 block in the first half, really compact at midfield, making Bayern go around. Like Bayern want to go through you. Their team, their strength is through the center of the field, play in to go out and around. And I thought Juventus did a really good job of making them switch up the way that they played. And then it was the first and second defender that made it difficult for Bayern to, even though they were getting into the attacking third, they weren't, their shots were getting blocked or their crosses were getting blocked. And so I felt, again, goes back to my comment about these other teams that are kind of closing the gap and finding a way through some of their defensive principles to go toe-to-toe with big teams. So I feel better about this performance for Bayern, even though I still think they should have drawn. I don't think it was a goal that I did last week, because at least it felt like they were creating, they were on the front foot, and even just the energy in the first 15 minutes, you could tell that they were like, mad about last week and wanted to set the tone.
That was bad though.
It was bad.
It was so bad.
Yeah.
But a better response though, like
yeah,
I wanted to see that. I can't put it on anyone else. Like, this is an I feel statement. I wanted to see that. Like, you cannot get your butt whooped like that and come out in the second game and have a similar or sniff of a similar performance. Even you need to feel that deep in your chest. And I think they showed it today. I think getting the win and the question mark goal, I think, eases some of that pain of that match day 1 game. But I'm with you, Jordan, in that there's still some question marks.
Totally. Goal or not goal? Not goal for me. What do you think?
I think the chat might be feeling similarly. I'm gonna say no. I was gutted for Juve, 100%. Yeah, we'll see what the chat thinks about it. But as far as what we've seen over the last two matches, the standings are shaking out a certain way. We see OL in the mix, of course. Barcelona. These are two teams who were kind of posed as these big four contenders moving forward, and they are showing us who we thought they were going to be. They are going out there and getting their wins, but there's also Wolfsburg ? Who is like kind of creeping into this scenario after two rounds of play here. As far as these sort of big three with the points, OL, Barcelona, Wolfsburg, like in the matches ahead in November, which of these teams do you see just sort of kind of taking the next window of games and kind of really making their mark? Any of the three that really kind of stand out for either of you?
Barcelona, as typical. I mean, I think just historically, this is what they do. This is their bread and butter, and so they have obviously started off the campaign really well. Obviously, we just speaking about the Bayern game, but I think of them, I mean, Lyonnes seem to be getting back on track as well. But to me, Barcelona is their Barcelona, right? And I think, we probably will be seeing them in the final. To be honest. But I mean but again, people may have, opinions vary, but I think we've seen how strong they obviously started off so far. And knowing them, they'll just continue to keep going in that trajectory. So for me, it's Barca.
And Barca play Leuven next round, which we got to Leuven what Leuven's been doing, but I think it might come to a halt against this Barcelona team. We're gonna find out, Sandra, because Lyon plays Wolfsburg in the third round in that next match day. That is going to be a spectacular match.
Yeah.
I'm already excited for that one. So I think Lyon, we didn't really talk a lot about Lyon in this match day, but everyone's going to talk about Lily Johannes's goal, but go back and watch the first goal that Lyon scored. She is integral in her movement off the ball to pull and drag players to create space for her teammates. This girl can ball, and she comes in, doesn't in and out of the starting lineup, but there is so much that this Lyon team has. They're so deep. And so I think them and Barcelona are the teams that we're looking at really going to run the roost here.
100%.
I'm with it. I think we're going to see it happen. All eyes on that Wolfsburg and Lyon match. Looking ahead, I think Barca will be all right. Even though, unfortunately, reportedly, Patri Guajiro is going to be out for potentially 12 weeks with a fracture. And that's going to be a tough scenario for them moving forward. She is we're talking about integral players, like absolutely one of those. So we'll see how that midfield continues to function without her over the next several weeks. But they bought themselves some cushion for sure. There's no denying that. Women's Champions League, match day 2. That is a wrap. What a time. We're going to check back in November with all of our Women's Champions League content. And we're going to keep it moving here. Right after a quick break, we're going to chat all things USWNT roster and Christen Press's retirement. Stick around.
This is European soccer's biggest stage.
Written in the stars! What a difference she has made!
The question is, can you handle it?
Can you handle it?
The crowd here feels electric. Stream every match of the UEFA Women's Champions League on Paramount+.
Hello, and welcome back to Attacking Third. We're wrapping up our coverage, Women's Champions League. Make sure you tune on back into that. We're moving forward with reactions to the United States Women's National Team October roster drop and, unfortunately, the retirement of Christen Press. Let's actually start there. Before we get into all of our roster takes, we got to take a minute to chat Christen Press and her retirement announcement, announcing on Wednesday that following the conclusion of the NWSL season, Christen Press is officially going to hang up her cleats and bid farewell to an incredible legacy. Not going to lie, in my feelings about it, this is just like more of what we've been seeing, I think, over the last few years. There's this very, very special roster of players that we got to see dominate, for over a decade across the international stage, win 2 World Cups, and really were these integral players in founding multiple leagues in the United States when it comes to domestic professional leagues. And Christen Press is part of this roster of players, and watching her week in and week out, across club play has been incredible, and to just sort of see where she's been and how she has operated. Kudos and thank you, really, just filled with gratitude. Jordan, your thoughts on another great, hanging them up.
Before we go to me, Sandra, I got to go to you. Like, what's your top Press moment when you're thinking about Press goals? Because there were a lot of them. Is there a moment that sticks out to you that you're going to be like, that was prime time Christen Press?
Yeah, actually. There's a ton. I think there's some that are like at the international level. Like obviously the 2019 semifinal goal is huge. But I have to say, I think after the 2016 Rio Olympics, I think that was that first kind of really tough narrative that U.S. national team program was handed. That people forget about that was the worst ever major international tournament finish for the U.S. women's national team. They got bounced on penalties against Sweden in the Rio Olympics, and there were a number of players who missed their penalty kicks. Alex Morgan among them, and unfortunately Christen Press, and just like kind of like the devastating effects of that they can have on a player's mentality, and how they have to maybe carry that all of a sudden into club play. But there was a unique scenario following that in which she returned to club and found herself having to take a penalty at the time for the Chicago Red Stars, and all the pressure that comes with that, right? But of course she nails it. So I think that game for me was pretty special. There was you can hear it quiet, you can hear a pin drop in SeatGeek Stadium, but a lot of dogs for Christen signs and support for her, and she was the captain of that team during her moments in Chicago, and to step up and kind of nail that, I think it kind of just is part of her legacy and who she is.
Yeah, I love that, because we're all going to think about that goal in the semifinal. I shared earlier of the 2019 World Cup, and I shared earlier this week on a podcast that I was working for the U.S. team covering the game as a fan, and I was sitting right behind her dad when she scored the goal, and I got to take a video of her dad celebrating her score, this massive goal in the World Cup, and what an honor that was to be able to share that with them, for them to have that moment that they could always look back on. Was just like, you don't get to experience that as a player. You never know what that looks like. Your family is celebrating in the stands. So we're going to remember that. But I just want like a loop. I want just every single goal she scored where she cut back from the wing and curled it to the far post. Like, that's all. You could go for minutes just
there's
going.
So many of them.
There's so many.
Staple, right? Like that's that iconic move, like the Christen Press cutback and banger.
Yes,
you love
it doesn't have the ring as like a trin spin, but it was her iconic move, right? And the game will miss that. She, I think mostly I'm just really happy that she got to leave on her own accord, that she got back from the injury and she got to say, you know what, I gave it everything I could give it, and I get to walk away. You don't know how much that means as a player when you get to walk away. And so, I'm sure this is not the last we see of her. She'll be around doing all the things that she does. So that's kind of the things that stick out for me.
For sure. For sure.
No,
yeah, she's a legend in her own way, and I mean, I remember when I was playing for Racing, and I don't think I was eligible to play yet, but we were playing Angel City, and I was in the stand, and I think this was like my first time actually like seeing her up close. And I'm not gonna lie, I think I was a bit starstruck, but it was just, it was really cool. And I think, seeing the legacy she leaves behind, it's incredible. And Jordan, and like you said, the fact that she gets to leave on her own terms is what every player wants, and I hope she's extremely proud of the career that she had, because she should be. I mean, winning, World Cup winner, it's unbelievable, and what she's done for the game in general, using her voice, standing up for those, and I think she doesn't have to worry about what her future will look like after. I was reading an article, I think that was when she was on Good Morning America, speaking about what this retirement, is for her, what it looks like. And, she admitted that she's a bit scared, she's a bit fearful. And I think we all are. Like, when I retired back in May, I was super scared about what life would look like out, away from soccer. But I don't think Christen will have to worry about anything. Of course, she's going to miss it. But just because you step away from soccer doesn't mean soccer is going to leave you completely, and what she's doing in the company that she's created, very engulfed in soccer, women's soccer especially, she's going to have a really bright future. But she should be extremely proud of the career that she had. And I'm excited to see what, Angel City does for her. And I hope they send her off and, in the big old parade, because she deserves it. She's done everything that she could. And coming back from that injury, it's not easy bouncing back from an ACL injury. Like, I can only imagine what that looked like, the setbacks. And she came back and, she kept pushing. So I'm extremely excited for her, and congratulations to her on a wonderful career for sure.
I hope we get to see one more banger, man. Honestly, I'll be selfish.
Yeah. If not, Sandra, her last goal will be that one where she came on and she scored like 20 seconds later after coming onto the field.
Right in May. Yeah. Which was an incredible goal. Again, another Christen Press stable. It's like wild.
It was,
like ninth on this all-time goal scorers list for the United States women's national team, as sort of this kind of non-starter. She was often someone coming off of the bench or providing that impact, or sort of that rotated starter. Right. And so it's wild to think that she scored all these goals from essentially from a lower position on the bench. So Christen Press, one more banger. If you got it in you, we salute you. Thank you. Congratulations on your retirement from playing international and club soccer. And the U.S. women's national team dropped their October roster. Emma Hayes naming 26 players for this one. And before we get into it, one of the players that was being celebrated in a return back to these October friendlies was Trinity Rodman, who had been missed out on some of the more recent camps for this team since April because she has been managing a back injury. And she has found herself playing regular minutes again for the Washington Spirit. But unfortunately, during a CONCACAF Champions Cup match, she sustained what looked like a pretty painful knee injury. Unfortunately, came out of that game ultimately with the leg wrap, with ice, and on crutches as well. So not great scenes, and everyone kind of waiting with bated breath as far as what an update could potentially be on that. There has been a small update. There's a reporting out of the Athletic saying that it's a more positive prognosis, that the initial scans have shown a long-term prognosis, and that they're hopeful that Rodman come make a return towards the end of the NWSL season, which is, I guess, about as positive as you can get, considering the end of the NWSL season is very soon. The decision day is going to be on November 2nd. So I guess continue to, best wishes for Trinity Rodman in a speedy recovery for sure. But one of the players that was being celebrated in a potential return to the roster, but it sounds like she will miss these camps coming up for the 3 games against Portugal and New Zealand. But there's a couple players who have also made their way back. I think for me, Jaden Shaw was a huge catch to kind of note on this one, that she's made her way. This is the player that has kind of had to balance some time on the U.S. women's national team roster. She has been in between, really, senior rosters and U23 rosters as well. Emma Hayes and U.S. Soccer have really sort of relaunched this U23 program, and it has really become this essential component alongside the senior team. And we've seen U23 camps taking place concurrently alongside any of these senior windows, even to the point where we saw over the summer that the U23s played some European friendlies as well. And so she is someone who may be utilizing those resources that are available to her, and finally getting back into the mix of this one. Jordan, when the roster dropped, was there anyone across the 26 players here that kind of caught your eye, or maybe even a snub, someone that you were surprised didn't see make the cut here?
My biggest takeaway when I saw this roster, guys, was there are a lot of young players. There's 17 players on this roster who have less than 25 caps.
That's what I thought.
17 players. That includes Jaden Shaw, Kat Macario, because they've been in and out in Macario with the injuries. But this, to me, is saying we're turning a page. We're going forward. We're moving on, and we trust the young kids, that we feel like we have a really good group of youth that we are going to invest in for a full year and a half to say this is going to be the core of our roster. So I think for me, and Satara, I might be stealing your thunder here, but I got to go as a center back. I'm happy to see McKeown in there. Yes. I think she's been, unfortunately for Kayla Sharples with the injury, to me, it takes her out of Defender of the Year because McKeown has played every single minute, every single game. She's been solid. She's adaptable. She can get forward and help with the attack. I am curious on that. Like, what is the center back pairing going to be? And some good options, but a lot of them being right-footed options. So curious about how that's going to work. I think the big player that's not in it for me, and maybe now with potential injuries will be added to the roster, I hope, is Croy Bethune. She's just, with Ali Setnor being a 10, but also can play as a winger, and Emma Hayes has utilized her a lot as a winger. I think Croy would, could play on the outside now that Rodman, or if Rodman doesn't go into camp with this injury, and you bring in a player like Croy Bethune, who in that 10 position can just eat up opponents. Like, seriously, just so savvy on the ball, sees things differently. And I'm sure she is in this mix in some way or another, but just didn't get that final call for this camp here. So those are my big thoughts and my one snuff.
I like it. Anyone sticking out or missing for you, Satara?
Well, last time obviously I was on A3, I spoke heavily about Jalen Howell. I thought maybe
good shout
would have gotten a shot this time around, because when we spoke last, Sandra, when we were in the last episode I was on, we were just talking about how she just kind of, she's finding her footing a bit with Gotham, scoring bangers, obviously, and and kind of getting back into that groove that I think people weren't expecting from her right off the bat when she came straight into the NWSL from college. But it's taken her a couple of years now to kind of find herself, find that groove, and she's there. She's got the momentum going. So I was just a bit surprised that she didn't call into this camp. But Jordan, I think you were spot on with how the youth of this camp. But they said the youth are our future, right? So I think that's also aligns with the U23s as well. I think Emma has a vision as to what she wants, and I think she's not completely escaping the veterans, the seasoned ones like the Lindsay Heaps of the world, but you can tell that she's kind of gravitating towards the younger generation. And I think because she's looking further into the future, she spoke about the Olympics, she spoke about the World Cup, she's looking well ahead into the future. So it'll be great. But thankfully, one thing about these young ones, this is a talented group. So I don't think you'll have to worry too much, but is obviously kind of getting them into that rhythm of international play. Like you said, Jordan, a lot of them are a bit inexperienced, but with I think with a little bit of consistency, kind of getting that togetherness, I think this could be an amazing group. So it's a good group for sure.
Just one comment on that Howell shout, because that is so good. I think she's got to be in the conversation for midfielder of the year in NWSL. I had Gotham, Kansas City last week, and we said this on the broadcast. Vlatko Ananovsky to us said Jalen Howell should be called into should be called into the national team. He is seeing what she's doing, and it is evident to everybody. And so I'm glad you said that, because it is a shock with how consistent she's been and the ground that she covers. Jess Carter was like, I can't believe how much running she does. She does so much for us. So that's such a good shout. And I hope she is in that mix in some way or another, but just not in this camp.
I guess my question is what more does she have to do to compete with someone like Sam Coffey? And
right.
I mean, she's doing everything that she should be doing, and then some. So my question is, what more does my girl have to do?
Yeah, it's a fair question.
I sometimes I'm just trying to figure out what exactly are those requirements in order to get called in.
I do wonder if how much of it is tied to the timing of things. It's funny because it's we've we've heard Emma Hayes be very, very honest and transparent in any of her media availabilities and say how there's a certain window of time that they're going to look at to start kind of narrowing that pool. But in the same line of thought, that emphasizing that something like the U23s is that extension. It's that extra arm of the national team, that in the event that they need to make sure that they need to pull somebody and have them be ready to make that next step, that they are there, that they are getting those experiences necessary to do that. But then you've got these players who are on the cusp or out of the cusp of that, right? Whether it is to your point, Jordan, a Sharples with maybe the injury coming into play and the timing of that and not getting that call, or Jalen Howell in this capacity, aged out of that, where it's like, okay, we can't get her in the U23s, but we also, for some reason, can't get her on the senior team for right now, which is kind of, I think this is where the frustration kind of comes in a little bit. And I mean, to Sharple's credit, I was kind of impressed by how many times she was name dropped by Emma Hayes specifically in her press call about the roster drop, and unprompted, like just was like, Kayla Sharple this, Kayla Sharple's that. And I'm just like, well, you are obviously doing something correct.
Yeah.
The U.S. Women's National Team head coach is bringing you up unprompted in these moments, and ultimately saying it came down to a choice between like a Sharples or a Kennedy Wesley, and Wesley has made this roster, but it's also completely unfair to bring up somebody in Howell when you look at that midfield that got called in. I am also very curious if maybe that does open the door for someone like Howell, in that the injuries that we are seeing, whether it's Robin, who is now unavailable for this window, or whatever the update will be on an Emily Fox, because part of Emma Hayes' discussion in her call was also the fact that they chose 26 players because they wanted to keep in mind the NWSL playoffs, the congestion of the calendar at this moment, the intensity of the calendar in this moment, and the fact that there is that playoff push, and the fact that there's 3 games in this match in this international window as opposed to the regular kind of 2 friendlies. So they want to have a larger pool of players to rotate from and manage those minutes. So I have to imagine that if with Robin out and potentially more, that maybe there will be other players who do end up getting that phone call after all. Maybe it sounds like we all think it should be Jalen Howell. So we'll see. We'll see. We'll see moving forward for sure. We will, of course, you know how we do. We will give you all of our previewing and our recapping and our coverage of the United States Women's National Team matches. Those will be taking place on October 23rd, 26th, and 29th. They will have games against Portugal and New Zealand. So make sure you stick around and tune in for those. And make sure you stick around and tune in for the rest of this show, because we are going to close things out with an NWSL preview coming right up. Welcome back to Attacking Third. We've got to close things out, close them out strong, and there's no better way to do that than by chatting all things NWSL. We've got a Week 25 preview, and you can catch some NWSL games across CBS platforms. And Saturday, October 18th, we've got Washington Spirit versus Orlando Pride on CBS. So make sure you tune in. 12:30 Eastern. And on Sunday, October 19th, we got Gotham FC versus Racing Louisville on the Golazo Network. Washington Spirit and Orlando Pride. My, how this fixture kind of crept up on us in terms of importance. Wasn't too long ago when a bunch of us were on this show talking about there's no way that Orlando Pride is going to make these playoffs. They are struggling. It's tough. And turns out, we are the catalyst for change, because just like that, Orlando Pride had flipped the script. They are now sitting in 3rd place on this standing, and this has become potentially a playoff preview, perhaps a semifinal preview. Number 2, Washington Spirit going up against number 3, Orlando Pride. Jordan, we got news. Trinity Rodman might not be available for this one, likely unavailable for this one. the Spirit have the depth, in your opinion, to make sure they can sort of overcompensate or overcome
Rodman? The Spirit with all they've got Kawasi and Monday and Cantore and Santos and Bethu. These players, like, they have so many options, like so many that they don't end up starting. Gift Monday doesn't start and then she comes on the next game and scores a hat trick. These are the problems that they have. Are any of them Trinity Rodman? No. No, of course not. But one of the things I've been most impressed with Adrian Gonzalez this year is how he sets his team up specific to the opponent that they're playing when that comes to the decision he makes with players that he's starting. So I think he's going to, without Rodman, he's going to have his opportunities to get players in. I would imagine Cantore starts. I can see Kawasi on the wing, maybe Santos on the other wing, right? These are the options that he has. Not bad for him. And this is going to be an interesting game. Both of these teams, you guys played midweek. They played in CONCACAF, and now they're playing an early game on Saturday. Like, this is a tough turnaround. And we don't know what the weather is going to be like, but just day games can be just a little bit different of a role, Satara, than anything else. So I think that's one of the things I'm looking at. And how much do you give away? Or how much of your cards are you really showing in this game? I think for me on the Orlando side, it's about stay tight defensively. Hope you get a couple of opportunities. If it's 0-0, it's 0-0, but don't give up a goal. Like, that to me is number one in my mind for what Orlando needs to do in this.
I would just like to note that I was not a part of that conversation with Orlando. I believed in Orlando, and I want them to know that.
I wasn't either, but we got thrown into it. It's fine. It's fine.
We didn't get thrown into it. No, but I Jordan, I think you're absolutely spot on. And listen, Orlando, they turned the table a little bit, but I think with all of the circumstances surrounding midweek game, early kickoff, and maybe not showing too much of your cards, it may not be the game that people are expecting. Both teams may hold back just a little bit, conserve themselves a bit, but I think I think it'll be a fantastic matchup. I think it's a little bit of foreshadowing for what is to come in the playoffs, hopefully. And and like Jordan mentioned, I don't think Washington needs to worry too much without having Trin. I think hopefully, based on the article, she'll be back in time for playoffs, but they have an arsenal of talent up top. Yeah. So I don't think, it will be too much for them to worry about, but I think it'll be a great game, but I don't think it'll be the game that people are expecting. It's not like a game at the beginning of the season when, everybody's coming out guns blazing,
it's a little more open. It's going to be tight. It's going to feel like a playoff game. It will.
Exactly. So I think it'll be a good match, but I think we have something more exciting, in the next couple of weeks when playoffs begin. So it'll be good.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do wonder if this game is going to give a little bit of Challenge Cup, because I remember kind of feeling that some of that energy in that very early game where they had to have this one-off, compete for the Challenge Cup. It was like, the Shield winners, champions going up against the runners-up, like. And the Spirit won. They embraced that.
Set piece goal.
I'm curious.
I think it was a set piece goal, wasn't it, in that game?
You're going exactly where I wanted.
Oh,
I do wonder with maybe if it will give some of that energy from Challenge Cup, where it's like, because it could be tighter and closely contested, because the playoffs are so close and not too far away, and because they are also sitting close in the table. And they happen to have a little bit of a set piece specialist of their own on Orlando, and Martha, for some reason, is showing and reminding everyone who might have forgotten that she could produce this way. She's becoming that dangerous kind of X factor for this team as they kind of continue to search for answers. So I guess it just comes down to this. Do you think there's going to be a winner and a loser in this one, Jordan? And do you have one? Who do you think it's going to be?
Oh, you want me to give you a prediction?
Prediction time.
I think it's going to be one. I don't want to do a draw, so I'm not going to. I was going to say 1-1, but 1-0 Washington.
I think that's fair. How about you, Sarah?
I'm going to have to go with that. But then I'm like, maybe I'll be the odd one out and maybe say a draw, 1-1.
Okay.
Like, we're talking about both these teams probably going to keep it quite tight rather than it be open. So perhaps 0-0. But if
we hate hearing that.
Okay. I'm like, all right. Okay. I'll take it because you know what? Jordan's going 1-0 for Spirit. You got draw, whether it's low, scoreless, or 1-1. I'll go the other way. I'll go 1-0 or Orlando.
Nice.
In this one. So we'll see. We'll see what it boils down to. Hopefully we get some interesting tidbits in between the lines and the X's and O's of it all. We've got Gotham and Louisville on Golazo Network. This is maybe like, look, we started at the top of the show as perhaps a little bit of bounce back energy. We wanted to see those responses from the Champions League's team. And maybe for Gotham, this could be a little bit of that energy for them. Is this the biggest game of the weekend in terms of stakes, Jordan?
Yeah, well, for Louisville, for sure. I think this Gotham team, everything really rides on North Carolina. If North Carolina lose this weekend, like everybody in the playoffs already clinch. So but if you win and you're in a playoffs position, you're in. So you're in control of your destiny right now. But for Racing Louisville, our producer just wrote, "Can anyone stop Big Perp?" Remember when they called him Big Perp? Like that was a Paige Monahan thing, and I loved it. I still refer to them to that sometimes. Satara, you know about the Big Perp.
I sure do.
I think this is going to be a very challenging game for Gotham because Gotham is a team who wants to play nice. Mm-hmm. They want to have the ball. They want to play through the thirds. They want to it is beautiful at times. And Louisville ain't having that.
Like the press.
They are not having that. Press. They're going to make things difficult. You better be in for a dogfight. And sometimes in playoffs, you got to be in for a dogfight. So if Gotham is up for that, if they are willing to go toe-to-toe with Louisville's intensity, I think that Gotham comes out with a win. But if not, I actually think Louisville gets a win on the road in Gotham.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. For my own selfish reasons, I would love for Racing to get into playoffs. I mean, it'd be the first time in the club's history. So that would be legendary for them. And for Bev,
yes,
that would be so dope. And if there's one thing about Bev, I know she's telling them girls this week, we gonna give them hell for 90 minutes straight,
with a few more words in there that we can't say.
Words that I cannot say on air. So no, but I know for a fact they're going out there, fighting. They are going down fighting. So Gotham has to be ready for that. This is not a time to be playing pretty little football. It's coming at you full throttle. But but in terms of obviously the other side with the Courage, everything kind of is on them. They obviously play Bay FC. I don't know, but I really do hope that Racing can get that clinch because I don't think there's a team more deserving of it. They have gone full throttle this season. So we'll see. But yeah, I think if Racing comes out the way that they do and Gotham is not up for the fight, Racing has it all day.
Mm-hmm. I got to see that response from Gotham. I think at this point they're listened to. They've dropped to fourth. You want to set yourself up for as much success as possible in that postseason. They're so close to it at this point. It's pretty much safe to say that they will be an eventual lock, but you still want to have the correct amount of energy and the right momentum at the right time. And I got to see that response. I got to see that bounce back. And unfortunately, I think they are going up against the absolute worst team to try to get that bounce back. Are you talk about getting bounced? Racing Louisville loves to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything more intimidating in the league right now than a 6-foot Taylor Flint being told to get out there and do what you got to do.
And Racing has been excellent on the road this year. One of the best teams in NWSL on the road.
Could be the individual matchups that we keep an eye on for sure this weekend. I mean, we were just singing the praises of Jalen Howe. How's that going to look in the middle with her versus Flint? Stay tuned. You can watch it on Golazo Network this weekend on Sunday. Make sure you tap in. I think For me, I'm gonna chicken out and say this one's got the makings of a draw. Let's keep the chaos going as long as we can until decision day and then NWSL. Make sure you tap back in to see who was right, who was wrong. The predictions, we love to have fun with them. Oftentimes we're back on here on Sunday night how incorrect we were, but this was a blast. Final thoughts, Jordan, Tara, before we tell everyone goodbye.
No, 2-1 Racing on the road, though. That's my prediction.
All right.
I was going to say 2-0 Racing. So,
hey, all right.
And that's it. Stamp it.
Let's go. Bold, big and bold on A3 today for sure. Attacking Third is going to return on Sunday, October 19th, right here on YouTube, right after the final whistle. You could catch me, Darren Jenkins, and Alyssa Carlin right back here to discuss all the biggest takeaways from week 25. We're going to have a post-match player interview. And of course, you're going to want to tap back in for our weekly team of the week, something that's taken on a life of its own. Make sure you tune back in to see who we can nominate. Make sure you follow Attacking Third wherever you get your podcast. Go ahead and leave us a 5-star rating and review. We're also available on youtube.com/WGolazo. Remix. Go ahead and catch us on the CBS Sports Golazo Network for all of your women's football coverage. For Jordan Angeli, Satara Murray, I'm Sandra Herrera. This was Attacking Third. Thanks you all for being here tonight.